Sarah Martinez stood in the corner of the crowded military bar, nursing her club soda, while watching her colleagues celebrate their latest successful mission. The dim lighting cast shadows across her face, highlighting the determination in her dark brown eyes. At 28, she had already earned 3 degrees in strategic warfare, computer science, and international relations, but none of that seemed to matter to the men around her. "Hey, Martinez, why don't you go get us another round?" called out Lieutenant Jake Morrison from across the room. His voice carried that familiar tone of dismissal she had grown accustomed to over the past 2 years. "And maybe some of those little sandwiches, too. You're good at that kind of thing." The laughter that followed felt like ice water down her spine. Sarah had heard variations of this same conversation countless times. Despite her impressive credentials and flawless service record, her male counterparts consistently treated her like a secretary rather than a fellow officer. She had graduated top of her class from the Naval Academy, completed advanced tactical training with honors, and possessed a photographic memory that had helped solve numerous intelligence puzzles. Yet here she was being asked to fetch drinks. "Actually, I think I'll pass," Sarah replied calmly, setting down her glass. "I have an early briefing tomorrow." "Oh, come on, sweetheart," Morrison continued, the endearment dripping with condescension. "Don't be such a party pooper. We're just having some fun after a hard day's work." Captain Rick Thompson, a burly man in his 40s with graying temples, joined in the mockery. "Yeah, Martinez, lighten up a little. You take everything so seriously. Maybe if you smiled more, people would actually want to work with you." Sarah felt the familiar burning sensation in her chest, the one that came when she wanted to say something that would probably end her career. Instead, she took a deep breath and reminded herself why she was here. Her father had been a Navy SEAL who died in action when she was 12. Her mother had raised her with stories of his bravery and dedication to protecting others. Sarah had joined the military not for recognition or respect from men like Morrison and Thompson, but because she believed in the mission of keeping her country safe. "I appreciate the advice," she said evenly, gathering her jacket. "Have a good evening, gentlemen." As she walked toward the exit, she heard Thompson's voice behind her. "There goes our ice queen again. I swear, that woman has no sense of humor. Probably why she's still single. Maybe she just needs the right man to show her how to have a good time," Morrison added, causing another wave of laughter. Sarah pushed through the heavy wooden door and stepped into the cool evening air. The base was quiet at this hour, with most personnel either at the bar or in their quarters. She began the 10-minute walk to her small apartment on the base, using the time to process the day's events and plan for tomorrow's challenges. What her colleagues didn't know was that Sarah had been selected for a highly classified program 6 months ago. While they saw her as just another junior officer pushing papers, she had been secretly training for one of the most elite positions in the military. The selection process had been grueling, involving psychological evaluations, physical challenges that pushed her beyond her limits, and intellectual tests that required her to solve complex strategic problems under extreme pressure. The program was so secretive that only a handful of people knew it existed. Sarah had been chosen from thousands of candidates across all branches of the military. The selection committee had been looking for someone with her unique combination of tactical brilliance, emotional stability, and absolute dedication to the mission. Her ability to remain calm under pressure, demonstrated repeatedly during her regular duties, had impressed the evaluators. During her secret training, Sarah had learned advanced combat techniques from former SEALs and Delta Force operators. She had studied the psychology of leadership under stress, memorized detailed intelligence about global threats, and practiced making split-second decisions that could affect national security. The training had taken place in remote facilities, disguised as routine assignments that her current supervisors barely noticed. What made Sarah particularly valuable was her ability to see patterns that others missed. During one training exercise, she had identified a potential terrorist plot by connecting seemingly unrelated pieces of intelligence that had stumped seasoned analysts for months. Her instructors had been amazed at how quickly she could process complex information and develop effective strategies. The irony wasn't lost on her that while Morrison and Thompson treated her like she was incapable of serious work. She was actually preparing to lead operations they could never qualify for. The SEAL task force she would eventually command was responsible for the most sensitive and dangerous missions in the military. These were operations that required not just physical courage, but intellectual brilliance and the ability to inspire absolute loyalty from the most elite soldiers in the world. Sarah reached her apartment and unlocked the door, stepping into the small but tidy space she called home. The walls were decorated with photos of her father in uniform and certificates from her various training programs. A bookshelf held technical manuals, strategy guides, and novels in 3 different languages. Her laptop sat on a simple desk, surrounded by notebooks filled with her thoughts on military tactics and leadership philosophy. She changed into comfortable clothes and settled into her favorite chair with a cup of tea. Tomorrow would bring another day of enduring condescending comments and being underestimated by her peers. But soon everything would change. In just 2 weeks, she would receive her new assignment and finally be able to show what she was truly capable of. The thought of Morrison and Thompson's faces when they learned the truth brought a small smile to her lips. They had no idea that the woman they dismissed as sweetheart had been chosen to lead some of the most elite soldiers in the world. She imagined their shock when they discovered that their drinks-fetching colleague would soon outrank them by several levels and command respect from generals and admirals. But Sarah's satisfaction wasn't really about proving those particular men wrong. It was about honoring her father's memory and protecting the country she loved. The position she was about to assume came with enormous responsibility. She would be making decisions that could save or cost lives, planning operations that could prevent terrorist attacks, or gather crucial intelligence about foreign threats. The weight of this responsibility didn't frighten her. If anything, it energized her. She had spent her entire adult life preparing for this moment, even before she knew this opportunity existed. Every slight, every dismissive comment, every time she had been overlooked or underestimated had only made her more determined to excel. As she prepared for bed, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She remembered being the only woman in many of her military training programs, facing skepticism and sometimes outright hostility from instructors and fellow students. She had learned to let her performance speak for itself, consistently outscoring her male counterparts on tests and exercises. There had been moments when she questioned whether the struggle was worth it. Times when the loneliness of being constantly undervalued made her consider leaving the military altogether. But she had always found strength in her father's example and her own unwavering belief in her mission. Now, as she stood on the brink of achieving something remarkable, Sarah felt a deep sense of purpose. The men who laughed at her tonight had no idea that they were looking at someone who would soon be making decisions that affected their own safety and the security of their families. Their mockery revealed more about their own limitations than hers. Tomorrow, she would return to her regular duties, continuing to play the role of the overlooked junior officer while secretly preparing for her true calling. She would endure more condescending remarks and dismissive attitudes, knowing that each day brought her closer to the moment when everything would change. The transformation would be dramatic and swift. One day she would be sweetheart fetching drinks, and the next she would be Commander Martinez, leading a team of the most elite soldiers in the world. The same men who questioned her capabilities would soon be depending on her decisions for their own survival. As Sarah drifted off to sleep, she dreamed of her father and the pride he would have felt knowing his daughter had achieved something so extraordinary. She dreamed of the mission she would lead, the lives she would protect, and the moment when the truth would finally be revealed to those who had underestimated her for so long. 3 days after the bar incident, Sarah sat in what appeared to be a routine staff meeting in Conference Room B. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead while Colonel David Hayes droned on about quarterly equipment reports and budget allocations. Her fellow officers looked bored, some barely staying awake as they listened to statistics about supply chains and maintenance schedules. Sarah took notes diligently, just as she always did, maintaining the image of the overly serious junior officer who took even mundane briefings too seriously. Morrison sat across from her, occasionally rolling his eyes when he thought she wasn't looking. Thompson drummed his fingers on the table, clearly thinking about anything other than the meeting's content. "That concludes our scheduled agenda," Colonel Hayes announced, closing his folder. "Most of you are dismissed. However, Lieutenant Martinez, please remain behind." The room cleared quickly, with Morrison making a show of sympathetic grimaces as if Sarah was about to receive a reprimand. "Try not to let the colonel hurt your feelings, sweetheart," he whispered as he passed her chair. Thompson chuckled and patted her shoulder in mock consolation. When the door closed behind the last departing officer, the atmosphere in the room changed completely. Colonel Hayes walked to the windows and closed the blinds, then returned to his seat with an expression Sarah had never seen before. Gone was the tired bureaucrat who had just spent an hour discussing inventory reports. In his place sat a man whose eyes held the sharp intelligence of someone who dealt with life and death decisions. "Lieutenant Martinez," he began, his voice now carrying an authority that hadn't been present during the meeting. "What I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels. You are to discuss this with no one, including your family, friends, or colleagues. Do you understand?" Sarah straightened in her chair. "Yes, sir. 2 weeks from today, you will receive orders for a transfer to a new assignment. Officially, you'll be assigned to a logistics coordination position at Naval Special Warfare Command. Your current colleagues will assume this is another desk job, probably in supply chain management or administrative support." He paused, studying her face carefully. "Unofficially, you'll be taking command of Task Force Trident, one of the most elite and secretive units in the United States military. This task force consists of hand-picked SEALs, Delta Force operators, and intelligence specialists who handle our most sensitive operations." Sarah felt her heart rate increase, but she kept her expression neutral. This was the moment she had been preparing for during months of secret training, but hearing it confirmed still sent adrenaline coursing through her system. Colonel Hayes continued, "Task Force Trident operates in complete secrecy. When there's a terrorist threat that conventional forces can't handle, when we need to extract high-value targets from hostile territory, or when intelligence operations require the highest level of skill and discretion, we send Trident. The unit has successfully completed over 40 missions in the past 3 years, with 0 casualties and a perfect success rate." He pulled out a thick manila folder and placed it on the table between them. "The previous commander, Colonel James Sullivan, was one of the most decorated officers in the SEALs. He specifically recommended you as his replacement after reviewing your performance during the selection process. According to his report, you demonstrated tactical brilliance that surpassed even experienced special operations veterans." Sarah thought about Colonel Sullivan, whom she had worked with during her secret training. He was a legend among special forces, a man who had led successful operations on every continent and earned the respect of enemies and allies alike. The fact that he had chosen her as his successor was both an honor and a tremendous responsibility. "Your official promotion to commander will be processed simultaneously with your transfer," Hayes explained. "You'll be jumping several ranks, which might raise eyebrows among those who don't know the truth about your qualifications. Let them wonder. The people who matter know exactly what you're capable of." He opened the folder and pulled out several photographs. "These are the men you'll be commanding. Each one is a volunteer who underwent extensive psychological evaluation to ensure they could take orders from someone they initially might not expect. They know their new commander is arriving soon, but they don't yet know who it is." Sarah studied the photos. The men looked exactly like what she expected from elite special operations soldiers. Their faces showed the calm confidence of people who had survived the most dangerous situations imaginable. These weren't men who would be impressed by rank alone. She would have to earn their respect through competence and leadership. "Staff Sergeant Mike Chun," Hayes said, pointing to the first photo. "Former Navy SEAL with expertise in underwater demolitions and close-quarters combat. He's completed tours in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Somalia. Speaks 4 languages fluently and has a master's degree in international relations. The next photo showed a tall, muscular African-American man with intelligent eyes. Master Sergeant Robert Williams, Delta Force. Sniper specialist with confirmed kills at distances exceeding 1,200 meters. Also our electronics warfare expert. He can hack into virtually any computer system and has prevented several cyber attacks on American infrastructure. Hayes continued through the photos, describing each team member's specialties and achievements. There was Petty Officer First Class Tony Rodriguez, a communications expert who had designed new encryption protocols now used throughout the military. Chief Petty Officer David Kim, a medic whose innovative battlefield surgery techniques had saved dozens of lives. Sergeant First Class Alex Thompson, a reconnaissance specialist who could infiltrate enemy territory and gather intelligence without being detected. These men have worked together for 2 years, Hayes explained. They trust each other completely and have developed an almost telepathic ability to coordinate during operations. Your job will be to maintain that cohesion while providing the strategic leadership that will allow them to tackle even more complex missions. Sarah nodded, studying each photo carefully. She was memorizing their faces, already thinking about how to approach each individual team member and what leadership style will be most effective with this particular group. Your first mission briefing will take place 1 week after you arrive at your new posting, Hayes continued. There's currently a developing situation in Eastern Europe that may require Task Force Trident's intervention. I can't provide details now, but it involves a terrorist cell that has acquired technology that could pose a significant threat to American interests. He pulled out another document, this one sealed with red tape. Your operational authority will come directly from the Joint Chiefs of Staff. When you're leading a mission, you report only to the highest levels of military command. You'll have access to resources that most officers never even know exist. Satellites, drone surveillance, special aircraft, advanced weapons systems, whatever you need to complete your objectives. The weight of this responsibility settled on Sarah's shoulders. In 2 weeks, she would go from being the woman her colleagues asked to fetch drinks to someone whose decisions could affect national security. The contrast was so stark it almost seemed impossible. There's one more thing, Hayes said, his expression growing serious. The existence of Task Force Trident is known to very few people, but there are some who actively oppose having someone with your profile in command of such a unit. You'll face skepticism and resistance from some quarters, people who believe this type of leadership position should only be held by someone who fits traditional expectations. Sarah understood what he was really saying. There would be people who questioned whether a woman could effectively command elite male soldiers in the most dangerous situations imaginable. She would have to prove herself not just to her team, but to military leaders who might be watching for any sign of weakness or failure. I'm confident you can handle these challenges, Hayes continued. Your performance during training showed remarkable resilience under pressure. But I want you to be prepared for obstacles that have nothing to do with your actual capabilities. He gathered the photos and documents, returning them to the folder. You'll receive detailed mission protocols and team dossiers once you arrive at your new posting. Until then, continue your regular duties here. Act normally. Give no indication that anything has changed. Let Morrison and Thompson continue thinking you're just another desk officer who takes orders too seriously. Sarah almost smiled at that. If only they knew that soon she would be making decisions that could affect their own safety and that of their families. Do you have any questions about your new assignment? Hayes asked. Just one, sir. What should I tell people when they ask about my transfer? Tell them you're being moved to a logistics position because the military values your attention to detail and organizational skills. Let them draw their own conclusions about whether this is a promotion or just another bureaucratic reassignment. Most of them will probably assume it's the latter. Sarah nodded. It was perfect. Her colleagues would think she was being shuffled off to an even more boring desk job, never suspecting that she was actually being promoted to one of the most prestigious and challenging positions in the military. Commander Martinez, Hayes said, using her new rank for the first time. In 2 weeks, everything changes. Are you ready? Yes, sir. I'm ready. As Sarah left the conference room, she felt a mixture of excitement and determination. The long months of secret preparation were finally coming to fruition. Soon, the men who had laughed at her and treated her like a servant would learn that they had been sharing drinks with someone whose true capabilities far exceeded their own. The week following her secret briefing with Colonel Hayes passed slowly for Sarah. She continued her regular duties, attending meetings where Morrison and Thompson treated her with their usual dismissive attitude, completely unaware that everything was about to change. She filled out routine paperwork, organized files, and endured more condescending comments about her serious demeanor and lack of humor. On Wednesday, Morrison approached her desk with a stack of incident reports. "Hey, Martinez, think you can handle filing these without making any mistakes? I know it's pretty complicated stuff, but I have faith in your organizational skills." Sarah looked up from her computer screen, where she had actually been reviewing classified tactical manuals disguised as budget spreadsheets. "I'll do my best, Lieutenant Morrison," she replied with perfect professional politeness. "That's the spirit," he said with a patronizing smile. "Maybe if you keep showing this kind of dedication to the simple stuff, they'll eventually trust you with something more important." If only he knew, Sarah thought as she watched him walk away. In a few days, she would be commanding operations that Morrison couldn't even imagine, making split-second decisions that could affect global security. The irony was almost too perfect. Friday afternoon brought the official announcement that would change everything. Sarah was sitting at her desk, pretending to review supply chain reports while actually memorizing the profiles of her future team members, when her secure phone buzzed with an encrypted message. "Lieutenant Martinez, report to Colonel Hayes' office immediately for new assignment briefing." This was it. Sarah felt her pulse quicken as she gathered her things and headed down the hallway. Several of her colleagues noticed her leaving, probably assuming she was in trouble for some minor infraction. Morrison actually gave her a mock sympathetic look as she passed his desk. Colonel Hayes was waiting with another officer Sarah didn't recognize, a stern-looking woman in her 50s with the bearing of someone accustomed to dealing with highly classified matters. The blinds were already closed, and both officers wore expressions of complete professionalism. "Lieutenant Martinez," Hayes began formally, "this is Colonel Patricia Walsh from Naval Special Warfare Command. She's here to brief you on your new assignment." Colonel Walsh stepped forward, extending her hand. "Commander Martinez," she said, using Sarah's new rank, "I've reviewed your file extensively. Congratulations on your selection for this position." The word commander hung in the air between them. After 2 years of being treated like a junior clerk, hearing her actual new rank spoken aloud felt surreal. Sarah shook Walsh's hand firmly, maintaining eye contact. "Thank you, ma'am. I'm honored by the opportunity." Walsh pulled out an official document with multiple seals and signatures. "These are your orders, effective immediately. You're being transferred to Naval Special Warfare Command for assignment to Task Force Trident. Your promotion to commander is processed and confirmed. All previous security clearances are upgraded to the highest classification levels." She handed Sarah the orders, which looked completely routine to anyone who might accidentally see them. The document mentioned logistics coordination and administrative oversight, giving no indication of the true nature of her new position. "Your transport leaves in 2 hours," Walsh continued. "You'll fly to Norfolk Naval Base, where you'll spend 3 days in final briefings before meeting your team. During this time, you'll receive detailed information about current operations, threat assessments, and strategic objectives." Colonel Hayes opened his desk drawer and pulled out a small metal briefcase. "This contains your new identification, security badges, and communication equipment. Everything you need to access the facilities and resources associated with your new position." Sarah accepted the briefcase, feeling its weight in her hands. Inside was the key to a completely different life, one where her skills and intelligence would finally be recognized and utilized to their full potential. "There's one more thing," Walsh said, her expression growing more serious. "Your current colleagues will be informed that you've been transferred to a desk job in logistics. They'll probably assume this is either a lateral move or possibly even a demotion. Let them think whatever they want. Your real work begins now. Sarah nodded. She understood the importance of maintaining secrecy, even if it meant enduring more misconceptions about her capabilities. Are you ready, Commander? Hayes asked. Yes, sir. Absolutely ready. An hour later, Sarah was packing her personal belongings from her desk. The few items she kept there, a photo of her father, some technical manuals, and a small plant, fit easily into a cardboard box. As she worked, Morrison and Thompson approached her workspace. So Martinez, heard you're getting transferred, Thompson said, leaning against her desk. Logistics, right? That sounds perfect for you. Very detail-oriented work, lots of filing and organizing. Right up your alley. Where exactly are you heading? Morrison asked with barely concealed satisfaction. I heard Norfolk. That's a pretty big facility, lots of paperwork to keep track of. You'll probably love it there. Sarah looked up at both men, these colleagues who had spent 2 years treating her as if she was barely competent to handle basic administrative tasks. In a few days, she would be leading some of the most elite soldiers in the world, making decisions that could save or cost lives, planning operations that would protect American interests around the globe. Yes, it's a logistics position, she said calmly. I'll be coordinating supply chains and managing inventory systems. Very exciting stuff. Both men laughed. Well, that definitely sounds like you, Thompson said. Always so serious about everything, even the boring stuff. You'll fit right in with a bunch of spreadsheets and filing cabinets. Maybe this will be good for you, Morrison added. Get you away from all the real military action. Put you somewhere where your talents are better suited. No offense, but you've always seemed more like the administrative type anyway. Sarah smiled politely. None taken. I think you're right that this position will be a good fit for my skills. What they didn't understand was that she was agreeing with them for entirely different reasons than they imagined. The position would indeed be perfect for her skills, her tactical brilliance, her ability to make complex strategic decisions under pressure, her talent for inspiring loyalty and respect from elite soldiers. Just not the skills they thought she possessed. Well, good luck with your new desk job, Thompson said as both men prepared to leave. Try not to let all that excitement go to your head. They walked away, chuckling to themselves, completely satisfied that the woman who had always seemed too serious and ambitious for her own good was finally being moved to where she belonged, behind a desk, managing supplies and filing reports. Sarah finished packing her belongings and took one last look around the office where she had spent 2 years being underestimated and dismissed. Tomorrow, this would all be behind her. Tomorrow, she would begin the most challenging and important work of her life. An hour later, Sarah was sitting in the back of a military transport vehicle heading to the airfield. Her replacement had already been briefed on her current projects, and her security clearances had been quietly transferred. To anyone watching, Lieutenant Sarah Martinez had simply been reassigned to another routine position. But Commander Sarah Martinez was about to take control of Task Force Trident and begin a new chapter that would transform her from the woman they asked to fetch drinks into one of the most powerful and respected officers in the military. The flight to Norfolk gave her time to think about the journey that had brought her to this moment. All the condescending remarks, all the time she had been overlooked or undervalued, all the occasions when her colleagues had questioned her capabilities, none of that mattered now. What mattered was proving that their new commander could lead Task Force Trident to even greater success. As the aircraft climbed into the afternoon sky, Sarah opened the briefcase Colonel Hayes had given her and examined her new identification. The name was the same, but everything else reflected her true rank and position. Commander Sarah Martinez, Task Force Trident. She had never seen words that felt more right. 3 hours later, she arrived at Norfolk Naval Base, where a car was waiting to transport her to a facility she had never heard of before. The buildings looked like standard military construction from the outside, but Sarah soon learned that appearances were deceiving. Inside, she found some of the most advanced technology and resources available to the American military. Her temporary quarters were comfortable, but sparse, designed for someone who would be spending most of their time focused on mission planning and team leadership rather than personal comfort. That evening, she reviewed the detailed files on her team members, studying their backgrounds, specialties, and psychological profiles. Staff Sergeant Chun had grown up in San Francisco, the son of immigrants who had sacrificed everything to give their children opportunities in America. His motivation came from a deep sense of gratitude and responsibility to protect the country that had welcomed his family. Master Sergeant Williams had lost his younger brother in a terrorist attack in Europe 5 years earlier. His dedication to the mission was personal. Every successful operation was a way of honoring his brother's memory and preventing other families from experiencing the same loss. Each team member had their own story, their own reasons for volunteering for the most dangerous assignments the military could offer. Sarah's job would be to understand these individual motivations and forge them into an unstoppable unit capable of handling any challenge. Over the next 3 days, she would receive intensive briefings on current threats, ongoing operations, and strategic objectives. She would learn about the resources available to her team and the support structure that made Task Force Trident so effective. Most importantly, she would prepare for the moment when she first walked into the room and met the elite soldiers who would be looking to her for leadership. The transformation from dismissed junior officer to respected commander was almost complete. Soon, the real work would begin. Monday morning arrived with crisp autumn air and the weight of destiny on Sarah's shoulders. She stood in front of the mirror in her temporary quarters, adjusting her new uniform with its commander's insignia. The woman looking back at her was the same person who had endured years of condescending remarks, but everything else had changed. Today, she would meet Task Force Trident for the first time. The briefing room was located in a secure underground facility accessible only through multiple checkpoints and biometric scanners. Sarah's new security clearance opened doors that most military personnel never even knew existed. As she walked through the corridors, she passed offices where analysts worked on classified intelligence and planning rooms where operations affecting global security were coordinated. Colonel Walsh met her outside the briefing room at exactly 0800 hours. "Ready to meet your team, Commander?" Sarah nodded, feeling a mixture of nervous energy and absolute confidence. "Yes, ma'am. I'm ready." Remember, they know their new commander is arriving today, but they don't know who it is. These men have worked under Colonel Sullivan for 2 years. He earned their respect through exceptional leadership and tactical brilliance. They're expecting someone who can measure up to that standard. Walsh paused, studying Sarah's face. They're also expecting someone who looks like what they think a special operations commander should look like. You're going to surprise them. Use that surprise to your advantage. The briefing room was larger than Sarah had expected, with a conference table surrounded by high-tech displays and communication equipment. 6 men stood at attention as she entered, their faces showing the calm professionalism of elite soldiers awaiting orders. "Task Force Trident," Colonel Walsh announced. "Meet your new commander, Commander Sarah Martinez." The silence that followed lasted only a few seconds, but Sarah felt every millisecond of it. She watched as each team member processed the fact that their new leader was not what they had expected. To their credit, their expressions remained professionally neutral, though she could see the questions in their eyes. Staff Sergeant Chun, the SEAL specialist she had studied in detail, was the first to step forward. "Ma'am, welcome to Task Force Trident. We're honored to serve under your command." The others followed his lead, each introducing himself formally. Master Sergeant Williams, the Delta Force sniper. Petty Officer Rodriguez, the communications expert. Chief Petty Officer Kim, the medic. Sergeant First Class Thompson, the reconnaissance specialist. Each man was exactly what Sarah had expected from his file: professional, intelligent, and clearly among the best at what they did. "Thank you," Sarah replied, her voice carrying the authority of her new rank. "I know you're wondering what qualifications I have to lead this unit. That's a fair question, and I respect your right to ask it." She moved to the front of the room, where a large screen displayed the Task Force Trident emblem. I've spent the last 6 months in advanced training specifically designed to prepare commanders for units like this one. I've studied every successful operation this team has completed, analyzed the tactics that made you effective, and learned from the leadership style that Colonel Sullivan used to build your remarkable success record. Sarah clicked a remote, and the screen changed to show a tactical diagram. More importantly, I've been selected based on demonstrated abilities in strategic thinking, crisis management, and the kind of decision-making required when lives are on the line. My academic background includes degrees in strategic warfare and international relations. My practical experience includes successful completion of simulated operations that tested every aspect of special operations leadership. She could see the team members evaluating her words, looking for substance behind the credentials. These were men who had survived in situations where incompetent leadership meant death. They wouldn't be convinced by paperwork and training records alone. But I know that what really matters to you is whether I can make the right decisions when bullets are flying and lives are at stake, Sarah continued. The only way to prove that is through our work together. I'm asking for your patience and professionalism while I demonstrate my capabilities. I believe you'll find that my approach to leadership will maintain the excellence this unit has always shown. Master Sergeant Williams, whose file indicated he was typically the most direct member of the team, spoke up. Ma'am, with respect, we've worked under Colonel Sullivan for 2 years. He was a former SEAL who had commanded special operations teams for over a decade. How do we know you understand what it's like to make life-or-death decisions in the field? Sarah had expected this question. Sergeant Williams, you're absolutely right that I haven't led combat operations before. But neither had Colonel Sullivan when he first took command of this unit. What I bring is a fresh perspective, advanced training in the latest tactical developments, and a commitment to building on the foundation he established. She clicked the remote again, showing a detailed mission analysis. I've spent the last week reviewing every operation this team has conducted. I've identified patterns that indicate why you've been so successful, and I've also spotted opportunities for even greater effectiveness. My job isn't to change what works. It's to optimize your capabilities for the evolving challenges we face. Petty Officer Rodriguez, the communications specialist, raised his hand. Commander, what can you tell us about our next mission? We know something's developing in Eastern Europe. Sarah moved to another display showing a map of the region in question. There's a terrorist cell operating in the border region between Ukraine and Moldova. Intelligence indicates they've acquired technology that could be used to disrupt critical infrastructure systems across Europe. Traditional military approaches won't work because the cell is embedded within civilian populations and has sophisticated anti-surveillance capabilities. She highlighted several points on a map. This mission will require the precise combination of stealth, technical expertise, and tactical flexibility that makes Task Force Trident uniquely qualified. We'll be working with limited local support in an environment where one mistake could create an international incident. Chief Petty Officer Kim, the medic, leaned forward. What's the timeline, ma'am? We deploy in 72 hours, Sarah replied, which means we have 3 days to plan, prepare, and coordinate. I want each of you to review your specialties and identify any equipment or intelligence you'll need. We'll meet again at 1,400 hours to begin detailed mission planning. The room was quiet for a moment as the team members absorbed this information. Sarah could see them beginning to shift from skepticism about their new commander to focus on the upcoming mission. This was exactly what she had hoped for. Their professionalism and dedication to the work would override any concerns about her background. Staff Sergeant Shen spoke for the group. Ma'am, we're ready to begin preparations. What else do you need from us right now? I need your honest feedback and your best thinking, Sarah replied. This team's success has always been based on collaboration and mutual trust. I'm not here to change that culture. I'm here to strengthen it. If you see problems with my approach or have suggestions for improvements, I want to hear them. As the team filed out of the briefing room to begin their preparations, Sarah felt a sense of satisfaction mixed with awareness of the challenges ahead. These men were clearly evaluating her every word and action looking for signs that she could live up to the standards they expected. But she also sensed their commitment to giving her a fair chance to prove herself. Over the next 3 days, Sarah worked closely with each team member to plan every aspect of their mission. She discovered that her theoretical knowledge of special operations tactics translated well into practical planning, and her ability to see connections and patterns helped identify potential problems that others missed. During one planning session, her analysis of satellite imagery revealed a previously unnoticed escape route the terrorists could use if their primary location was compromised. Master Sergeant Williams acknowledged that this insight could be crucial to the mission's success. "Good catch, Commander," he said, and Sarah heard the first note of genuine respect in his voice. By Wednesday afternoon, the team had developed a comprehensive operational plan that incorporated each member's specialized skills while accounting for multiple contingencies. Sarah had demonstrated her ability to coordinate complex logistics, make strategic decisions under pressure, and adapt quickly to changing circumstances. The night before their deployment, Sarah stood in the team's common area, reviewing final preparations. Staff Sergeant Shun approached her with 2 cups of coffee. "Commander, can I speak frankly?" he asked. "Of course, Sergeant. Always. When we first heard we were getting a new commander, we expected someone like Colonel Sullivan. When you walked in Monday morning, I'll admit we were surprised. But watching you work these past 3 days, seeing how you think through problems and coordinate our capabilities, you're not trying to be Colonel Sullivan. You're bringing your own strengths to the job." Sarah accepted the coffee gratefully. "Thank you, Sergeant. That means a lot coming from you. The team is ready to follow your lead, ma'am. You've earned that trust through your work, not your rank." As Sarah prepared for her first mission as commander of Task Force Trident, she reflected on how far she had come from the woman her former colleagues had dismissed as overly serious and unsuited for real military work. Tomorrow, she would be leading some of the most elite soldiers in the world on a mission that could affect international security. The transformation was complete. Commander Martinez was ready to prove that their faith in her abilities was justified. 6 months later, Sarah stood in the same military bar where Morrison and Thompson had once asked her to fetch drinks. This time, however, she wasn't there as a dismissed junior officer nursing a club soda in the corner. She was there for an awards ceremony celebrating the outstanding achievements of military personnel from across the region. The transformation in her appearance was striking. The new uniform bore the insignia of a full commander, along with ribbons and decorations that spoke of successful missions and exceptional service. Her posture radiated the confidence of someone who had repeatedly proven herself under the most demanding circumstances imaginable. Task Force Trident had completed 4 major operations under her leadership, each one more successful than anyone had dared hope. The mission in Eastern Europe had been executed flawlessly, with the terrorist cell neutralized and the stolen technology recovered without a single casualty or international incident. Subsequent operations had taken them to 3 different continents, always achieving their objectives with precision and professionalism. Sarah scanned the crowded room, spotting familiar faces among the assembled military personnel. Morrison was there, now sporting the rank of captain after a recent promotion. Thompson had also advanced, earning recognition for his work in military intelligence. Both men appeared confident and successful, clearly pleased with their career progression. What they didn't yet know was that their paths were about to intersect with Sarah's in a way that would fundamentally change their understanding of military excellence. Colonel Hayes approached Sarah's table, accompanied by a distinguished-looking admiral whose presence commanded attention throughout the room. "Commander Martinez," Hayes said formally, "I'd like you to meet Admiral Patricia Stone, Deputy Chief of Naval Operations." Admiral Stone extended her hand with a smile that spoke of someone familiar with exceptional military achievement. "Commander Martinez, your reputation precedes you. The success of Task Force Trident under your leadership has been noted at the highest levels of command." "Thank you, Admiral. I'm honored to serve. I understand you have a history with some of the officers here tonight," Stone continued, glancing meaningfully around the room. Tonight seems like an appropriate time to set the record straight about your actual qualifications and achievements. As if summoned by her words, Morrison appeared at their table, his expression showing polite curiosity mixed with surprise at seeing Sarah in such distinguished company. Martinez, I didn't expect to see you here. How's that logistics position working out? Still organizing supply chains? Sarah looked at Morrison calmly, remembering all the times he had dismissed her capabilities and treated her like a secretary. Actually, my assignment evolved quite a bit from what was originally described. Thompson joined them, carrying a drink and wearing the satisfied expression of someone who had enjoyed several rounds already. Sarah, good to see you. We heard you got transferred to some desk job at Norfolk. Supply management, right? That always seemed like a better fit for your particular skills. Admiral Stone watched this exchange with interest, clearly curious to see how Sarah would handle the situation. Colonel Hayes maintained his professional demeanor, but Sarah detected a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Gentlemen, Sarah said evenly, I'd like you to meet Admiral Stone, Deputy Chief of Naval Operations. Admiral, these are my former colleagues, Captain Morrison and Major Thompson. Both men straightened immediately, clearly impressed by the Admiral's rank and presence. Admiral Stone, Morrison said, extending his hand. It's an honor to meet you, ma'am. The pleasure is mine, Stone replied. I was just discussing Commander Martinez's exceptional service record with Colonel Hayes. Her leadership of Task Force Trident has been truly outstanding. Morrison's expression froze. Task Force Trident? I'm not familiar with that unit. It's one of our most elite special operations units, Stone explained. Commander Martinez has been leading some of our most sensitive and successful missions. Just last month, her team prevented a major terrorist attack in Southeast Asia. The operation was executed with precision that exceeded even our highest expectations. Thompson looked confused, glancing between Sarah and the Admiral. I'm sorry, I think there might be some confusion. Sarah was transferred to a logistics position. Administrative work, supply chain management, that sort of thing. Colonel Hayes stepped forward. Major Thompson, I think I can clear up the confusion. Lieutenant Martinez's transfer to what appeared to be a logistics position was a cover story. She was actually selected for promotion to commander and assignment to lead one of the most elite units in the military. Sarah watched as both men struggled to process this information. The woman they had spent 2 years treating as barely competent to handle basic paperwork was standing before them, wearing the rank of a full commander and receiving praise from one of the highest-ranking officers in the Navy. I don't understand, Morrison said slowly. Sarah, Commander Martinez, was leading special operations? When did this happen? The selection process began over a year ago, Sarah replied calmly. While I was working in our previous unit, I was simultaneously undergoing evaluation and training for this position. The administrative work you saw me doing was essentially my cover assignment while I prepared for my actual role. Admiral Stone added, Commander Martinez was chosen from thousands of candidates across all branches of the military. The selection committee was looking for someone with her unique combination of tactical brilliance, strategic thinking, and leadership capabilities. Her performance has validated their decision completely. Thompson set down his drink, his face showing a mixture of shock and embarrassment. All those times when we asked you to... He couldn't finish the sentence. When you asked me to fetch drinks and handle filing, Sarah supplied helpfully. I understood that you were evaluating me based on the information available to you. I couldn't correct your assumptions without compromising the security of my actual assignment. Morrison ran his hand through his hair, clearly struggling with the revelation. So, when we thought you were being transferred to another desk job, I was actually being promoted to command some of the most elite soldiers in the military, Sarah confirmed. The men I lead now are Navy SEALs, Delta Force operators, and intelligence specialists. They handle missions that require the highest levels of skill, courage, and strategic thinking. Colonel Hayes pulled out his phone and showed them a photograph. This was taken after their last mission. Commander Martinez is receiving a commendation for exceptional leadership under fire. The photo showed Sarah in combat gear, surrounded by her team members, all wearing expressions of satisfaction after completing a successful operation. She looked confident, authoritative, and completely in her element. Nothing like the woman Morrison and Thompson remembered as too serious about mundane administrative tasks. The mission I can tell you about involved rescuing hostages from a terrorist compound in Africa, Admiral Stone explained. Commander Martinez coordinated a complex operation involving multiple military branches and international allies. Her strategic planning and real-time decision-making prevented what could have been a catastrophic international incident. Thompson stared at the photograph, his understanding of the last 2 years undergoing a complete revision. All this time you thought I was just another junior officer who wasn't suited for real military work, Sarah said without malice. That was understandable, given the information you had. But it turns out that the woman you asked to organize files was actually being prepared to coordinate some of the most important operations in the American military. Morrison looked genuinely distressed. Sarah, I owe you an apology. We all do. The way we treated you, the things we said. Captain Morrison, Sarah interrupted gently. You treated me based on what you thought you knew about my capabilities. You weren't trying to be cruel. You were operating with incomplete information. The real measure of a person isn't how they act when they have all the facts, but how they respond when they learn they were wrong. Admiral Stone observed this exchange with approval. Commander Martinez has shown the same grace and professionalism in dealing with skepticism throughout her career. When she first took command of Task Force Trident, her team members had similar doubts about her qualifications. She won their respect through competence and leadership, not by dwelling on their initial misconceptions. The conversation was interrupted by an announcement that the awards ceremony was beginning. As military personnel took their seats, Admiral Stone gestured for Sarah to join the group of officers being recognized. Commander Martinez, the Admiral announced to the room, will be receiving the Distinguished Service Medal for her exceptional leadership of Task Force Trident and the successful completion of her classified operations that significantly enhanced American national security. As Sarah walked to the front of the room to receive her award, she passed Morrison and Thompson's table. Both men stood and saluted with perfect military precision, their faces showing genuine respect and admiration. The irony of the moment wasn't lost on her. 6 months ago, these same men had questioned whether she was capable of handling basic administrative tasks. Now, they were saluting her as she received one of the military's highest honors. During her acceptance speech, Sarah spoke about the importance of recognizing potential in all military personnel. It's our ability to recognize and develop talent wherever we find it. Every person in uniform has the potential to contribute something extraordinary to our mission, if we're wise enough to look beyond our assumptions. The audience applauded enthusiastically, but Sarah noticed that Morrison and Thompson's applause was particularly heartfelt. They had learned a valuable lesson about the dangers of underestimating people based on incomplete information. After the ceremony, Morrison approached Sarah privately. Commander, I want you to know that this has been a humbling experience. I've always prided myself on being a good judge of character, but I completely misjudged your capabilities. I hope you can forgive my blindness. Captain Morrison, Sarah replied, the best leaders are those who can learn from their mistakes and grow from their experiences. Your willingness to acknowledge what happened shows the kind of character that will serve you well as you advance in your own career. Thompson joined them, looking equally chastened. Sarah, Commander, I keep thinking about all the times we dismissed your input or treated you like you couldn't handle serious responsibilities. Meanwhile, you were preparing to lead operations that we couldn't even qualify for. Sarah smiled. Major Thompson, the past is the past. What matters now is how we move forward. You're both talented officers who have made significant contributions to our military. The fact that you initially misjudged one colleague doesn't diminish your own achievements. As the evening wound down, Sarah reflected on the complete transformation of her circumstances. 6 months ago, she had been the woman they laughed at for taking everything too seriously. Tonight, she was Commander Martinez, leader of Task Force Trident, recipient of the Distinguished Service Medal, and an officer whose capabilities were recognized at the highest levels of military command. The journey from dismissed junior officer to respected commander had been challenging, but every moment of doubt and every condescending comment had strengthened her resolve to excel. Now, as she looked around the room, full of military personnel who understood her true achievements, Sarah felt a deep satisfaction in knowing that she had proven herself through competence, dedication, and unwavering commitment to excellence. Morrison and Thompson had learned that the woman they asked to go away, sweetheart, actually ran one of the most elite units in the American military. But, more importantly, they had learned never to underestimate anyone based on appearances or assumptions. Sarah Martinez had come full circle from invisible junior officer to celebrated commander, proving that true leadership could emerge from the most unexpected places.